Welcome, dear friends and seekers of history, to an extraordinary journey into the heart of ancient Egypt. Today, we stand on the sands of time, gazing upon one of the most awe-inspiring creations ever carved, Weitien, by human hands, the Temple of Ramses II at Abu Simbel, the Phrases. Imagine the golden sun rising over the Nile, casting its first light upon colossal statues that have stood for more than settling years, guardians of a king's eternal legacy. These towering figures do not merely watch over the desert. They whisper stories of gods and pharaohs, of power and devotion, of artistry and ambition. In this journey, we will uncover the temple's secrets, from its creation by one of Egypt's greatest rulers to the astronomical alignments that make it a marvel of both architecture and science. We will explore the myths, the history, the incredible rescue operation that saved it from the rising waters of the Aswan High Dam, and the spiritual significance that continues to draw visitors from across the world. So take a deep breath, open your heart to wonder, and step with me into the sacred halls where stone speaks and history lives forever. The desert of Nubia lies silent, a golden expanse stretching endlessly under the morning sky. The first light of dawn spills over the horizon, casting long shadows across the cliffs that rise from the banks of the Nile. The river glitters in the early sun, winding through the sand like a ribbon of life, nourishing everything it touches. Over 3 millennia ago, this was the southern gateway to Egypt, a land of trade, culture, and strategic power. Nubia was rich in gold, ivory, and exotic treasures, its people skilled in archery and craftsmanship. To control this region was to hold the key to Egypt's wealth and security. It was here that Ramses II, Ramses the Great, envisioned a monument unlike any other. He sought not merely to honor the gods, but to proclaim his greatness to the world for eternity. His chosen site was a sheer cliff face overlooking the Nile, a place where the desert meets the river, and the sky seems vast enough to hold a king's ambition. The scene bursts with life. Hundreds of workers gather at the base of the cliff, their tools of copper and stone glinting in the light. Ropes, sleds, and scaffolding stand ready. The rhythmic sound of chisels striking rock echoes across the valley. Slowly, the outline of 4 colossal statues begins to emerge, each the towering image of Ramses himself, seated in majesty, gazing forever toward the rising sun. But this temple will be more than stone and labor. Ramses orders it aligned with the heavens, so that twice each year, the dawn's rays will travel deep into its heart, illuminating the sanctuary and the gods within. It will be a temple, a message, and a symbol of eternal power, all carved into the living rock. And so, on these sands of Nubia, the story of Abu Simbel begins. Ramses II, known to history as Ramses the Great, was more than a ruler. He was a living embodiment of divine power. Born around 1000 BCE, his reign would last for an astonishing 66 years, making him one of the longest reigning pharaohs in Egyptian history. To his people, he was not merely a king but a god in human form. Eating, chosen by the deities to uphold Maat, the cosmic balance of order, justice, and truth. From the very start of his reign, Ramses set out to leave his mark on the world. He commanded vast armies, led successful campaigns in the Levant and Nubia, and signed the first known peace treaty in history after the famous Battle of Kadesh. His building projects stretched across Egypt like a constellation of stone, temples, statues, and cities bearing his name. But it was in the southern frontier, at Abu Simbel, where his vision would take its most monumental form. Here, He sought to create a temple that would serve both as a divine offering and as a declaration of his might to all who entered Egypt from the south. Every visitor, friend or foe, would be greeted by the sight of the god king himself, towering above them in stone. Ramses understood the power of image and legacy. The colossal statues would not only display his likeness, but also the symbols of the gods, binding his identity. Through art and architecture, he would ensure that his name echoed across millennia. In life, Ramses was a figure of grandeur, clad in gold and fine linen, adorned with ceremonial crowns, and surrounded by attendants, scribes, and soldiers. In death, his spirit would dwell eternally among the gods, and his monuments, like Abu Simbel, would stand as unyielding testaments to his ambition. The choice of location was Ramses II understood that a monument's power is not only in its size or beauty, but in its placement. The southern border of Egypt, where the Nile narrows between towering cliffs, was both a strategic and symbolic gateway. This was where traders, diplomats, and armies passed between Nubia and Egypt. Whoever stood here commanded the lifeblood of the region. It was along this frontier that Ramses found his perfect canvas, a massive sandstone cliff facing the Nile. The site was majestic, framed by desert hills and kissed by the river's reflection. Here, the pharaoh's temple would be visible from miles away, proclaiming his glory to all approaching from the south. The sandstone of the cliff was soft enough to carve, yet strong enough to withstand centuries of wind and sun. Its sheer face promised a dramatic entrance, perfect for the four colossal statues Ramses envisioned. The temple's position would allow for an astronomical wonder, the twice-yearly alignment of the sunrise with its inner sanctuary. The choice was both practical and poetic, a blend of geology, engineering, and divine symbolism. Ancient architects and priests studied the land for weeks. They noted the direction of the sun, the stability of the rock, and the patterns of the river. Ramses himself visited the spot, his eyes sweeping over the cliffs, the shimmering Nile, and the open desert beyond. Here, he declared, the gods would witness his eternal reign. With the decision made, work began immediately. Camps for workers sprang up along the riverbanks. Supplies of food, water, and tools were brought in by boat. The sound of hammers and chisels would soon echo against the cliffs. The first heartbeat of a temple that would outlast empires, the cliff at Abu Simbel, stood like a sleeping giant, waiting for the touch of human hands to awaken it. For Ramses' vision to become reality, it would take not only strength and endurance, but also remarkable engineering skill. The process began with careful planning. Master architects and stonemasons studied the rock face, marking the positions of each colossal statue and the temple entrance with red ochre paint. Every measurement had to be precise. Even the smallest error could ruin the symmetry that Ramses demanded. Workers used copper chisels, dolerite pounding stones, and wooden mallets to chip away at the sandstone. Teams labored in shifts under the blazing desert sun, their bodies glistening with sweat, their muscles straining with each strike. As the stone fell away, the rough shapes of the statues emerged. First the massive legs, then the torso, arms, and finally the serene, godlike face of Ramses II. Rams II. Lift and move heavy blocks. The Egyptians built ramps of compacted sand and mud brick. Wooden sledges, dragged by teams of men, slid the stone across these ramps. Water was poured on the sand to reduce friction, a clever technique that made the impossible seem achievable. Inside the cliff, Other teams carved the temple's halls and sanctuary, their torches flickering in the darkness. The walls were smoothed and prepared for the intricate reliefs that would later tell the story of Ramses' reign. Years passed, but the work never stopped. Day by day, the statues grew taller, the entrance took shape, and the temple's heart moved closer to completion. If hammer blow was a step toward immortality, both for Ramses and for the countless hands that shaped the living rock into eternal grandeur. At the entrance of the Abu Simbel temple stand four of the most magnificent statues ever carved by human hands, the four colossi of Ramses II. Each one towers over 20 meters high, their faces serene yet commanding, their forms perfectly symmetrical, as if shaped by the gods themselves. These colossal guardians were designed to do more than impress. They were a declaration. Anyone approaching Egypt from the south would see the god-king seated in majesty, watching over the Nile's waters, his gaze fixed eternally eastward to greet the rising sun. The statues are nearly identical, each portraying Ramses II in the Nemes headdress, adorned with the double crown of Upper and Lower Egypt, a cobra at his brow, and a calm, unyielding expression of divine awe. The detail is extraordinary. The curve of the lips, the smooth planes of the cheeks, the carved muscles of the chest and arms, even the pleats of his ceremonial kilt are rendered with care. At the base of each statue, smaller figures represent members of Ramses' family, his beloved Queen Nefertari, his mother, and his children, their smaller size a mark of their relative status. One of the four statues suffered damage in antiquity, its upper portion collapsing, likely due to an earthquake. Yet even in ruin, it retains an air of dignity, a reminder that time may weather stone, but it cannot erase the legacy it holds. For the ancient Egyptians, these statues were not merely art. They were living symbols of divine presence. In their silent watch, the four colossi have stood for over 3,000 years, greeting the dawn and whispering across the ages. Ramses the Great still reigns here, stepping through the towering entrance of Abu Simbel. Visitors leave behind the blinding desert sun and enter a world of shadow, incense, and divine presence. The air is cooler here, heavy with the faint scent of oil lamps and the echoes of footsteps against stone. This is the great hypostyle hall, the temple's first and grandest chamber. 8 massive pillars line the hall, each carved into the likeness of Ramses II in the form of Osiris, the god of the afterlife. Their arms are crossed over their chests, holding the crook and flail, symbols of kingship and divine authority. The Osiroid statues loom silently, their expressions unchanging, as if guarding the path to the gods. The walls are alive with color and story. Painted reliefs depict Ramses in battle, driving his chariot into the thick of enemies or presenting offerings to the gods. Hieroglyphs run in neat, vertical lines, telling of victories, divine blessings, and the pharaoh's eternal connection to the heavens. Light filters into the hall from the entrance, casting long beams that illuminate the dust in the air. Priests once walked this chamber, chanting prayers and burning incense in bronze braziers. Musicians would have played harps and sistrums, their melodies blending with the low drone of hymns. Beyond the hall of pillars lies the sanctuary, hidden in darkness, waiting for the 2 sacred days each year when the sun will strike its heart. But here, in this vast chamber, the power of Ramses is already palpable. The stone seems to hum with his presence, a reminder that this was not only a temple for worship, but also a monument to a man who saw himself as equal to the gods. At the very heart of Abu Simbel lies its most sacred chamber, the inner sanctuary. This is the destination of the temple's grand design, the spiritual core where the divine and mortal meet. The chamber is small compared to the vast halls before it, but its power is immeasurable. Here, 4 seated statues sit side by side, carved directly from the rock. From left to right, Ptah, the god of creation and craftsmanship, Amun-Ra, king of the gods, Ramses II himself, depicted as a living deity, and Ra-Horakhti, the falcon-headed god of the rising sun. Together, they form a divine assembly, with Ramses placed among the gods as their equal. Each figure is carefully crafted. Ptah is shown with a tight-fitting skull cap, holding the Wazn scepter. Amun wears a tall, plumed crown. Ramses is adorned with the Nemes headdress and double crown. Ra-Horakhti bears the sun disk and falcon head, holding the Ankh, symbol of life. The placement of this chamber is no accident. Twice each year, on February Ashur and October Ashur, the rising sun pierces the temple's entrance, travels through the Hall of Pillars, and bathes 3 of the statues in golden light. Only Ptah remains in shadow, a deliberate choice, for he is the god of the underworld. This astronomical precision is a masterpiece of ancient engineering, uniting architecture and religion in a single cosmic event. For the priests, these days marked moments of great ceremony, honoring Ramses' birthday and coronation. Offerings of bread, beer, incense, and flowers filled the chamber, while chants echoed against the stone. The light itself was the blessing, a reminder that Ramses ruled with the favor of the gods, his reign illuminated by the same sun that powered the universe. Just a short walk from the grandeur of the great temple of Ramses, 2 stands a smaller but equally captivating monument, the Temple of Hathor, dedicated to Ramses' beloved queen, Nefertari. This companion temple is a rare jewel in Egyptian history, for it is one of the very few in which a queen is depicted as equal in stature to the pharaoh himself. The Fas Adeh is graced by 6 colossal statues, each about 10 meters high. 4 portray Ramses II, but 2, standing proudly among them, are of Nefertari. She is shown wearing the headdress of the goddess Hathor, with cow horns encircling the solar disk, symbolizing beauty, motherhood, and love. The equality of scale is a profound statement of her importance in Ramses' reign and heart. Between the legs of the larger statues, smaller carvings depict their children, further emphasizing the royal family's unity. The entrance leads into a hall supported by pillars adorned with the face of Hathor herself, each smiling serenely, her cow ears carved in delicate detail. Inside, the walls are covered with scenes of Nefertari, making offerings to the gods, playing the sistrum in devotion to Hathor, and standing beside Ramses in sacred rituals. The intimacy of the art contrasts with the monumental scale of the great temple, creating a space that feels warm, graceful, and deeply personal. This temple was not only a gift of love, but also a political statement. By honoring Nefertari so prominently, Ramses aligned her image with that of Hathor, elevating her to a divine role in the eyes of the people. Together, these 2 temples, one for the god-king, the other for his queen, stand as eternal symbols of power, devotion, and partnership. Twice each year, Abu Simbel transforms into the stage for one of the ancient world's most extraordinary spectacles, the Sun Festival. On these 2 sacred mornings, February Ashur and October Ashur, the first rays of the rising sun travel through the temple's entrance, down its long passageways, and into the heart of the sanctuary. As dawn breaks, the desert is alive with anticipation. In ancient times, priests, nobles, and citizens would gather outside the temple long before sunrise. The air would be cool, carrying the scent of incense and the murmured prayers of the crowd. Musicians would play soft melodies, their harps and flutes weaving through the quiet hum of expectation. The moment arrives. The sun's light, golden and pure, pierces the entrance and slides along the temple floor. Slowly, it advances toward the sanctuary's four seated statues, Ptah, Amun, Ra, Ramses II, and Ra Horakti. In perfect precision, the beams illuminate Amun-Ra, Ramses, and Ra Horakti, leaving Ptah, god of the underworld, in darkness. The alignment is no accident. It is a triumph of astronomical and architectural genius. In ancient times, this event marked two monumental dates, Ramses' birthday and his coronation. It was both a personal celebration for the pharaoh and a reaffirmation of his divine right to rule. The festival would continue for hours, with offerings of bread, beer, wine, and flowers brought into the sanctuary. Priests would chant hymns of praise, their voices echoing in the stone chambers, as the sunlight slowly retreated and the temple returned to shadow. Even today, thousands gather to witness this phenomenon, a living link to a civilization that understood the heavens as deeply as it understood stone. Abu Simbel's Sun Festival remains a reminder that the ancient Egyptians were masters not only of architecture, but also of time itself. Beyond the towering cliffs of Abu Simbel, the land of ancient Nubia thrived with a rhythm as old as the Nile itself. This southern frontier was a vibrant blend of Egyptian influence and Nubian's heritage, and a place where cultures met, traded, and sometimes clashed. Nubia's villages lined the riverbanks, their mud-brick homes shaded by palm groves. In the early morning, fishermen cast wide nets into the Nile, pulling in shimmering tilapia and catfish. Farmers tended fertile plots along the floodplain, growing barley, wheat, and vegetables nourished by the river's annual inundation. Herds of cattle, goats, and donkeys grazed in the open fields, their bells clinking softly in the breeze. And the markets were alive with color and sound. Traders offered gold from Nubia's mines, ivory from distant African lands, incense, leopard skins, ostrich feathers, and exotic woods. In exchange, Egyptian merchants brought fine linen, faience jewelry, copper tools, and crafted ceramics. The circa languages mingled in the air, Egyptian, Nubian, and the dialects of travelers from faraway lands. Religion here was a rich tapestry. Nubians worshipped their own gods alongside Egyptian deities, often blending traditions. Small shrines dotted the landscape, some dedicated to local river spirits, others to Amun or Horus. Music and dance were integral to daily life, with drums, flutes, and clapping hands keeping time for celebratory gatherings. For the Nubians, the temple of Abu Simbel was both a wonder and a reminder of Egyptian power. Its colossal statues gazed southward, asserting the pharaoh's dominance, but also inviting cooperation and unity. Life continued around it, planting, trading, worshipping. As the people of Nubia found their place in a world shaped by both the river and the desert, Abu Simbel was more than a place of worship. It was a declaration of dominance, diplomacy, and ambition carved into stone. For Ramses II, this monumental temple was as much a political weapon as it was a religious sanctuary. Situated at Egypt's southern frontier, it was the first sight travelers, merchants, and envoys from Nubia would see when approaching by river. The colossal statues of Ramses seated in majesty sent a clear message. Egypt was powerful, its king was godlike, and its reach extended far beyond its heartland. No army could pass without acknowledging the pharaoh's gaze. No trader could ignore the wealth and stability his reign offered. The temple also reinforced Egyptian presence in Nubia by dedicating the inner sanctuary to the gods Amun, Ra, Horakti, and Ptah, and placing himself among them Ramses projected the idea that his authority was divinely ordained. The architecture itself was propaganda, embedding his image into the very landscape as if nature had yielded to his will. Carvings along the walls depicted Ramses in victorious battle, most famously at Kadesh, where he is shown single-handedly routing his enemies. These scenes were not just history. They were political theater, meant to intimidate foreign visitors and inspire loyalty among Egyptians and Nubians alike. The temple also played a role in diplomacy. Ceremonies held here were attended by Nubian chiefs and foreign dignitaries who were treated to displays of Egypt's religious grandeur, military might, and economic prosperity. In this way, Abu Simbel became a stage where politics and spirituality merged, securing Ramses' legacy not only as a builder and warrior, but also as a master statesman. On the inner walls of Abu Simbel, history is carved in bold, unyielding lines, or rather, the version of history Ramses II wanted the world to remember. Among the most striking scenes are those depicting the Battle of Kadesh, a military campaign that took place in the 5th year of his reign, around Echin-Erbektesius BCE, against the Hittite Empire. The reliefs show Ramses as the lone, unstoppable force on the battlefield. In the grand narrative, he drives his chariot directly into enemy lines, bow taut, arrows flying, while the Hittites scatter in chaos. His horses rear up, their manes streaming, as if even they share in the pharaoh's divine energy. Behind him, Egyptian soldiers rally, inspired by his courage. The reality of the battle was more complex. Historians now know it ended in a stalemate, eventually leading to the first recorded peace treaty in history. But inside Abu Simbel, the story is told as a decisive victory for Egypt, a testament to Ramses' strength and divine favor. Every detail of the carvings is deliberate. The enemy soldiers are smaller in scale, emphasizing their inferiority. Ramses is enormous, dominating the scene. Chariots, weapons, and armor are rendered with precision, showing the artistry and discipline of the Egyptian army. The hieroglyphs accompanying the images are filled with poetic boasts, crediting Amun, the king's patron deity, for guiding his hand and ensuring his triumph. For visitors to the temple, whether Egyptian subjects or foreign dignitaries, these reliefs were more than decoration. They were propaganda in stone, reinforcing the image of a pharaoh who could not be defeated, whose reign was protected by the gods themselves. Within the grand halls of Abu Simbel, the scent of incense once filled the air as priests performed sacred rituals in honor of the gods and the deified Ramses II. Religion was the heart of ancient Egypt, and this temple was a stage for elaborate ceremonies that connected the mortal realm to the divine. Every day at dawn, the priests began their duties. Clad in pristine white linen, they entered the temple after ritual purification in the Nile. Carrying bronze censers, they walked through the Hall of Pillars, their chants echoing against the stone walls. Hymns were sung to Amun-Ra, Horakti, and Ptah, calling upon their blessings for the pharaoh and Egypt. Offerings were central to these rituals. Baskets of bread, cuts of meat, jars of beer and wine, fresh fruits, and fragrant flowers were placed before the statues in the sanctuary. Oil lamps flickered in the dim light, casting dancing shadows over the stone faces of the gods. Sistrums and drums accompanied the chants, their rhythm matching the measured pace of the ceremonial processions. Special festivals brought even greater splendor. On the Sun Festival days, the rituals were magnified. More priests, more music, more offerings. Ramses himself, or his high representatives, would present gifts to the gods, reaffirming his divine right to rule. These moments were as much political displays as they were acts of devotion, showing visiting dignitaries Egypt's deep bond with the heavens. The people of Nubia and Egypt believed these offerings sustained the gods. And maintained the cosmic balance of harmony and order. To neglect them would invite chaos. Thus, the rituals of Abu Simbel were more than tradition. They were a sacred duty that bound the kingdom together under the protection of its gods. In the sacred world of Abu Simbel, music and dance were not mere entertainment. They were acts of worship, channels through which the people of Egypt could honor the gods and celebrate the divine nature of Ramses II. Every note played and every step taken held spiritual meaning, weaving art into the fabric of religion. During temple ceremonies, music set the rhythm for the priests' processions and the presentation of offerings. The soft jingle of the sistrum, a sacred rattle associated with the goddess Hathor, was believed to please the gods and dispel evil spirits. Harps with tall, elegant frames produced deep, resonant tones, while flutes added a bright, airy melody. Drums kept a steady beat, guiding the synchronized movements of both priests and dancers. Dance, too, had its sacred place. Priestesses and trained temple dancers performed graceful, flowing movements that mirrored the myths and stories of the gods. Their gestures could symbolize the rising sun, the flooding Nile, or the eternal embrace of sky and earth. Some dances were slow and meditative, intended to invoke blessings. Others were vibrant and celebratory, marking festivals or victories. On special occasions, especially during the Sun Festival, the temple became alive with sound. The walls seemed to vibrate as the combined music of harpstrums and sistrums filled the air. Dancers in gold-adorned linen circled in harmony, their feet moving softly on the polished stone floors. The flicker of torchlight reflected off bronze symbols and jewelry, creating a mesmerizing play of light. To the ancient Egyptians, this harmony of music, movement, and ritual was a way to align themselves with the divine order of Maat. At Abu Simbel, music and dance did not simply accompany worship. They were worship, offering joy, devotion, and beauty to the gods. Today, Abu Simbel stands in majestic shades of golden sandstone, its surfaces weathered by time and desert winds. But in the days of Ramses II, this temple was a burst of color, a vibrant canvas meant to awe visitors and honor the gods. Every statue, relief, and hieroglyph was painted with meticulous care, transforming the stone into a living tapestry. The colossal statues at the temple's face at day would have gleamed with bright pigments. Ramses' skin was painted a warm reddish brown, his eyes outlined in black coal, and his headdress striped in vivid blue and gold. The double crown was a brilliant red and white, while the cobra ornament shone in gold leaf. Even the smaller statues of Nefertari and the royal children were adorned with jewel-like colors. Inside, the hypostyle hall and sanctuary were alive with painted scenes. The walls depicting the Battle of Kadesh were not just carved. They were colored in deep reds for the warrior's skin, gleaming gold for weapons, and blue for the river and chariot decorations. Scenes of offerings to the gods shimmered with white linen garments, green lotus flowers, and yellow baskets of bread and fruit. The pigments were made from natural minerals: red and yellow ochre, malachite green, azurite blue, and soot black. Mixed with binders like egg or gum arabic, these colors adhered to the stone for centuries. Gold leaf was applied to highlight divine symbols, catching the light of flickering oil lamps. For ancient visitors, entering Abu Simbel would have been like stepping into another world, one where gods, kings, and stories seemed alive. Over millennia, the colors faded, worn away by sand, wind, and time, but traces still remain, whispering of the temple's once splendid glory. While the grandeur of Abu Simbel's Fas Adé and main halls is well known, the temple also hides quieter, lesser seen spaces, small chambers and passageways carved deep into the sandstone. These hidden rooms, though modest compared to the grand sanctuary, played vital roles in the life of the temple. Some were storage rooms, holding offerings for the gods, baskets of grain, jars of wine and beer, bundles of incense, and rolls of linen for dressing statues. Others served as preparation areas for priests, where they could perform purification rituals before stepping into the sacred halls. There were also spaces for storing ceremonial objects, golden vessels, musical instruments, and ritual tools used during festivals. Archaeologists believe certain rooms may have been used for record-keeping. Here, scribes would inscribe papyrus scrolls with records of offerings, lists of participants in rituals, and accounts of significant events. These administrative spaces ensured that temple life ran with precision, reinforcing the link between the spiritual and practical duties of the priests. Some hidden chambers are still shrouded in mystery. Narrow, twisting corridors lead to small niches whose purposes remain uncertain, perhaps shrines for lesser-known deities or private meditations. The dimness of these spaces, lit only by flickering oil lamps, would have created an atmosphere of deep solitude and reverence. For the average visitor in ancient times, these rooms were unseen. Only priests and temple workers knew of their existence, and access was likely restricted. Today, they offer archaeologists valuable clues about the daily workings of Abu Simbel, showing that behind its monumental face lay a complex, living institution devoted to both the gods and the glory of Ramses II. Pulkin, long after the reign of Ramses II, when Egypt's power had shifted and new empires rose across the Mediterranean, Abu Simbel still stood, a silent sentinel watching over the Nile. During the Ptolemaic and Roman periods, travelers, soldiers, and officials from Greece and Rome visited the temple, leaving behind an unusual legacy: graffiti carved into its sacred walls. Some of these inscriptions date back over 2,000 years, scratched into the sandstone alongside the ancient hieroglyphs. Greek visitors, fascinated by Egypt's monumental architecture, often wrote their names, hometowns, or short messages in Greek script. Short messages, Roman soldiers stationed in Egypt during the empire's rule did much the same, sometimes marking dates or declaring their presence far from home. In many cases, these carvings were surprisingly respectful, placed in empty wall spaces rather than over the original reliefs. Still, for modern eyes, the idea of inscribing one's name on such a sacred monument seems jarring. Yet for these travelers, it was a way of recording their awe, of leaving a mark in a place that seemed eternal. Nefertiti. One notable example comes from the Greek mercenaries who passed through Nubia while serving in Egypt's armies. They carved their names near the temple entrance, perhaps as a testament to their service. Roman officers, too, left official inscriptions noting military campaigns or the construction of roads and forts nearby. These later markings, though far removed from the temple's original purpose, are now part of its layered history. They tell of Abu Simbel's continued significance across centuries, not just as a place of worship, but as a wonder of the world that drew visitors from distant lands. In their own way, the Greeks and Romans ensured that the temple's story would be shared beyond Egypt's borders for centuries, Abu Simbel lay hidden beneath the sands. The desert winds had slowly buried its colossal face. Day, leaving only the heads of the massive statues visible above the dunes. Local Nubian communities knew of its existence, but to the outside world it had faded into legend. When the Swiss explorer Johann Ludwig Burckhardt, famous for rediscovering Petra, heard tales from locals of a giant stone temple half buried in the desert, Burckhardt relayed the information to his Italian friend and fellow explorer Giovanni Belzoni, a former circus strongman turned adventurer and antiquities seeker. In Ichen Babait Ishiti, Belzoni arrived at Abu Simbel with a team of workers determined to uncover the site. The task was daunting. Centuries of sand had piled up nearly to the statue's shoulders, blocking the entrance entirely. For weeks, Belzoni's men dug tirelessly under the relentless Nubian sun, using nothing more than shovels, baskets, and sheer determination. At last, they cleared enough sand to enter the temple. As Belzoni stepped into the shadowy halls, torchlight revealed the towering Osiride pillars, vivid wall paintings, and the serene faces of the gods in the sanctuary. The sight was unlike anything he had ever encountered. Word of the discovery spread quickly across Europe, igniting fascination with ancient Egypt and drawing scholars, artists, and travelers to Nubia. Abu Simbel became a jewel in the growing field of Egyptology, inspiring paintings, sketches, and early photographs. Though their methods would be criticized today, Burckhardt and Belzoni's rediscovery brought Abu Simbel back into the world's awareness, ensuring that the temple's majesty would once again be celebrated. Far beyond the sands that had hidden it for so long, by the mid-1st century, Abu Simbel faced a danger unlike any it had encountered in its 3,000-year history. Not invasion, not sand, but water. Egypt had embarked on a massive engineering project, the construction of the Aswan High Dam. The dam promised to control the Nile's annual flooding, generate electricity, and support agriculture. But it would also create Lake Nasser, a vast reservoir that would submerge hundreds of miles of the Nile Valley, including the temples of Abu Simbel. When the plans became public in the late Ichen Jubite Wusses, archaeologists, historians, and world leaders sounded the alarm. If nothing was done, the rising waters would engulf the site forever. Egypt, newly asserting its independence under President Gamal Abdel Nasser, was determined to preserve its heritage but needed help. In Ichen Jubite Likas, an unprecedented call went out to the international community through UNESCO. The appeal captured global attention. The challenge was monumental. How do you save a mountain temple carved into solid rock without destroying it? For several years, debates raged among engineers and preservationists. Some suggested enclosing the temple in a protective glass dome underwater. Others proposed relocating the entire cliff face to higher ground. In the end, the decision was made to dismantle the temple block by block and rebuild it on an artificial hill above the future lake's shoreline. This solution would require extraordinary precision and international cooperation. The task ahead would be one of the most ambitious archaeological rescue missions in history. Abu Simbel's survival would now depend not only on ancient engineering, but also on modern ingenuity and a race against time. UNESCO launched what would become one of the most ambitious archaeological rescue missions in history: the salvation of Abu Simbel. More than Usur nations pledged financial, technical, and logistical support, united by the belief that the treasures of the past belong to all humanity. King. The plan was bold: dismantle the entire temple piece by piece and rebuild it Lusawu meters higher and Urbeg meters back from its original location, safe from the rising waters of Lake Nasser. The task was daunting. The Great Temple and the smaller Temple of Hathor together weighed tens of thousands of tons, carved into a cliff. Yes. Engineers began by constructing a massive protective dome over the site, to shield workers from the desert heat and falling debris. Every section of the temples was carefully mapped, numbered, and photographed to ensure that the reassembly would be exact. Using giant circular saws, workers cut the monuments into over 1,000 blocks, each weighing up to sandstones. The precision required was extraordinary. The cuts had to be made in ways that would preserve the original carvings while allowing the blocks to be rejoined seamlessly. Once freed from the rock, each block was hoisted by cranes, loaded onto trucks, and transported to the new site. There, the reconstruction began, guided by meticulous records. It took 4 years of intense labor, from Ichen Jubayt Loshasus to Ichen Jubayt Loshabad, to complete the relocation. When the last block was set in place and the scaffolding removed, Abu Simbel stood once again, almost exactly as it had for 3,000 years, only now it was safe from the floodwaters. The success of the project was more than an engineering feat. It was a triumph of international cooperation, proving that when nations unite, even mountains can be moved, quite literally, by the mid. The rescue of Abu Simbel had entered its most dramatic stage, cutting an entire mountain temple into transportable pieces and moving them to safety. This was no ordinary construction job. It was an unprecedented combination of archaeology, engineering, and logistics on a global scale. The colossal statues of Ramses II were sliced into massive blocks, some weighing up to sandstones each. Precision was critical. A mistake in cutting could shatter a statue or destroy a section of ancient reliefs. Workers marked each block with an identification code, ensuring that the temple could be perfectly reassembled at the new location. Every detail was documented with photographs, sketches, and measurements. Giant circular saws with diamond-tipped blades roared through the sandstone, sending clouds of golden dust into the desert air. The noise echoed against the cliffs, mixing with the shouts of workers and the rumble of heavy machinery. Cranes carefully lifted each block onto flatbed trucks, which rumbled up the steep ramps toward the relocation site. At the new site, an artificial hill was prepared to replicate the original cliff. Engineers and archaeologists worked side by side, slotting each block into place with millimeter precision. Joints were filled and camouflaged so well that visitors today can barely see where the cuts were made. This monumental task took over 2 years of intense labor. More than ling blocks were moved, each one representing a fragment of history carried by human ingenuity. By Ichen Jubayt Loshabad, the temple stood complete once again, not buried beneath a lake, but preserved for future generations. The relocation of Abu Simbel remains one of the most extraordinary achievements in heritage preservation, proving that even a mountain can be moved when the will of the world is behind it. Today, Abu Simbel stands as one of Egypt's proudest symbols, a testament to the genius of its ancient builders and the determination of the modern world to preserve it. Perched high above the shores of Lake Nasser, the temple greets visitors much as it did ling years ago, with the colossal gaze of Ramses II watching over the southern frontier. Since its relocation, Abu Simbel has become a centerpiece of Egyptian tourism. Travelers from around the world arrive by road, river, or even small aircraft to witness its grandeur. The first sight of the towering statues against the backdrop of the desert. and lake is enough to leave even the most seasoned traveler in awe. Inside, the walls still speak through their reliefs and inscriptions. Tour guides explain the stories of Ramses' victories, divine connections, and the miraculous sun festival alignment. The colors that remain hint at the temple's original vibrancy, while the precision of its carvings continues to inspire wonder. For Egypt, Abu Simbel is more than an archaeological marvel. It's a national treasure and a source of pride. It represents resilience, not only of the ancient civilization that built it, but also of the modern effort that saved it from destruction. The site also serves as an important cultural bridge. Each year, the Sun Festival draws thousands of visitors, both Egyptians and foreigners, who gather to witness the same astronomical magic that awed ancient worshippers. The event is a reminder that history is not static. It lives on in the experiences of those who come to see it. Protected as a UNESCO World Heritage Site, Abu Simbel continues to be preserved for future generations. In the stillness of the desert, with the Nile's waters now replaced by the expanse of Lake Nasser, the temple remains what it has always been, a monument to ambition, artistry, and the enduring human desire to be remembered. Standing before the colossal statues of Abu Simbel, visitors are often drawn to a subtle but captivating detail: the faint, enigmatic smile on the face of Ramses II. It is not a broad grin, but a quiet, confident expression, as if the pharaoh knows a secret that has endured for over 3 millennia. In ancient Egyptian art, expressions were rarely casual. Every curve of the lips, every tilt of the eyes carried meaning. Ramses' slight smile could symbolize divine contentment, the perfect order of Maat under his reign, or the pharaoh's eternal confidence in his power and legacy. By blending humanity with godlike composure, the sculptors created a face that is at once approachable and unshakable. Some Egyptologists suggest the smile was also a display of political strength. Visitors from Nubia, foreign diplomats, and traders arriving by the Nile would see a ruler whose calm expression conveyed absolute control. There was no need for a show of anger or ferocity. This was a king whose authority was unquestioned, whose might was assured. From an artistic perspective, the smile reflects the mastery of New Kingdom sculptors. The colossal statues are carved from a sandstone cliff, yet the lips curve with delicate precision, their symmetry perfect despite the scale. The play of light at different times of day can make the smile appear warmer or more commanding, adding to its mystery. For modern visitors, the smile has taken on a life of its own, a symbol not only of Ramses' reign, but of the enduring spirit of ancient Egypt. It invites you to wonder, is it a smile of pride, triumph, immortality? Perhaps it is all three, carved into stone to speak across the ages. Every surface inside Abu Simbel seems to speak. The walls, pillars, and even the doorways are covered in hieroglyphs, not just decoration, but a library in stone. These inscriptions tell the story of Ramses II's reign, his devotion to the gods, and the values of the civilization he ruled. Some texts are historical records. They recount military campaigns, most famously the Battle of Kadesh, praising Ramses' courage and strength. Others detail diplomatic achievements, such as treaties and alliances written in the poetic style of royal propaganda. These messages were meant to inspire pride in Egyptians and command respect from foreign visitors. Many inscriptions are religious. Hymns to Amun-Ra, Ra-Horakti, and Ptah cover the walls, affirming the pharaoh's divine right to rule. Offerings of food, drink, incense, and flowers are described in elaborate detail, showing how the rituals of the temple were meant to sustain the gods and ensure the prosperity of Egypt. Hieroglyphic texts also serve as eternal prayers. They were carved with the belief that as long as the words remained, the blessings they invoked would endure. Even today, standing before these inscriptions, one can sense the weight of that belief, the idea that writing was a bridge between the mortal and the divine. The artistry is just as striking as the content. Hieroglyphs are carved with remarkable precision, each sign perfectly proportioned. In some places, traces of original paint remain. Reds, blues, and yellows once made the symbols glow in torchlight. Together, the words and images create a narrative that blends history, religion, and art into a single, unified message. At Abu Simbel, the walls are more than stone. They are voices of priests, scribes, and a pharaoh who wanted his story to be told for eternity long before Abu Simbel became a world-famous archaeological treasure. It lived in the hearts of local Nubian communities through stories passed down from generation to generation. To the people who dwelled along the Nile, the colossal statues were not just silent stone faces. They were guardians, protectors, and even mysterious beings with supernatural powers. One legend told of a great king who built the temple as a gift to the sun god. It was said that on special days, the sun's rays would enter the heart of the mountain to awaken the gods within. Villagers believed these days brought blessings for the land, plentiful harvests, safe journeys, and protection from illness. Another tale claimed the statues themselves were alive. At night, under the glow of the moon, they would rise from their seats to patrol the desert, ensuring no harm came to their sacred home. Footprints in the sand, caused by wandering animals or shifting dunes, were sometimes explained as the tracks of these living giants. A popular story from the early Shujut century described the rediscovery of the temple. Locals spoke of a young boy named Abu Simbel who led foreign travelers to the site, pointing out the heads of the statues barely visible above the sand. The name of the temple, they said, came from this boy, a tale blending truth and folklore. For many Nubians, the temple was also a spiritual marker. They believed its alignment with the sun was a sign of harmony between humanity and the cosmos. Even after the temple was relocated in the Jobite licrices, these beliefs persisted, showing that Abu Simbel's power extends beyond stone and history into the realm of living tradition. When the blazing Nubian sun sets and the desert cools, Abu Simbel transforms. The golden light of day fades into deep blues and silvers, and the colossal statues take on an entirely different presence under the night sky. The crowds thin, the air grows still, and the temple becomes a silent giant standing watch over Lake Nasser. At night, the carvings seem sharper, their shadows deeper. The faint lines of Ramses' smile look more mysterious, his eyes gazing into a darkness filled with stars. Without the bustle of daytime visitors, the sight feels timeless, as if you've stepped into the ancient world where only the whispers of the wind and the soft lapping of water against the shore break the silence. Special evening light shows now illuminate the temple in golden, amber, and cool blue tones, telling the story of Ramses II through music and narration. Projected images bring the painted glory of the temple back to life, showing how it looked more than 3,000 years ago. The colossal statues seem almost alive as the lights shift across their faces, highlighting every detail carved by ancient hands. For those who choose to stay after the show, the real magic begins when the lights fade and the stars take over. The desert night reveals a sky thick with constellations, undimmed by city lights. In that stillness, Abu Simbel feels like it belongs as much to the heavens as to the earth. Night at the temple offers a rare intimacy, a moment to stand before Ramses II and feel the weight of history in the cool desert air. Here, in the quiet, the gods and the pharaoh seem closer, their stone voices echoing softly across the centuries. Abu Simbel's grandeur has not only endured for over 3,000 years, it has also inspired architects, designers, and artists across the globe. Its scale, symmetry, and symbolic power have influenced everything from monumental government buildings to museum facades and even modern art installations. The temple's most striking influence lies in the concept of the monumental face, a vast, flat surface dominated by colossal statues or columns, giving a sense of awe before even entering the structure. This idea can be seen in neoclassical and Egyptian revival architecture of the Bath and Jurjot centuries, particularly in Europe and the Americas, where grand entrances often echo Abu Simbel's imposing style. 20. In the Jurjot century, when Egyptology captured the imagination of the Western world, architects incorporated motifs such as lotus columns, winged sun discs, and hieroglyphic-style carvings into public buildings, theaters, and even cemeteries. The symbolic power of Ramses' colossal statues, projecting authority, stability, and permanence, was especially appealing for national monuments and institutions. Abu Simbel's relocation in the Ichen liquors also influenced modern engineering. The precision and ingenuity required to dismantle and reassemble the temple inspired large-scale conservation techniques still used today in heritage preservation projects around the world. Even in popular culture, echoes of Abu Simbel appear. From stage designs and film sets to corporate headquarters, the temple's symmetrical layout and iconic seated statues are instantly recognizable symbols of ancient power and human achievement. Architects often study its alignment with the sun as a model for integrating astronomical events into building design, creating spaces that connect with the natural world in meaningful ways. Abu Simbel reminds the modern world that architecture is more than just construction. It is a statement, a message carved into time. Whether replicated in stone, steel, or glass, its legacy continues to inspire creators to think bigger, build bolder, and craft structures that speak across centuries. Arriving at Abu Simbel today is a journey into both history and the vast beauty of the Nubian desert. Whether by road from Aswan, across the shimmering expanse of Lake Nasser by boat, or by a short flight to the nearby airstrip, the approach builds anticipation. As visitors crest the final hill or step off the boat, the colossal face of the great temple emerges. Four seated Ramses II statues towering against the golden cliffs, just as they have for millennia. The site is organized to immerse visitors while preserving its heritage. Wide walkways lead to the temples, flanked by signs explaining their history in multiple languages. At the Great Temple, guests can stand at the base of the colossal statues, dwarfed by their scale, before stepping inside to explore the hypostyle hall, side chambers, and the inner sanctuary. Inside, the cool air contrasts with the desert heat outside. Guides share stories of Ramses' victories, religious rituals, and the temple's astronomical alignment. Visitors can see the intricate carvings and faded traces of original paint, imagining the temple in its full glory thousands of years ago. Nearby, the smaller temple of Hathor honors Queen Nefertari, its 6 statues equally captivating. The intimacy of its design offers a striking contrast to the grandeur of the Great Temple, making it a favorite for many travelers. For those who visit during the Sun Festival in February or October, the experience is heightened by witnessing the sunrise beam directly into the sanctuary, a phenomenon that continues to inspire awe. Modern amenities, such as shaded rest areas, small cafes, and souvenir stalls, provide comfort without detracting from the authenticity of the site. Whether one spends an hour or an entire day, Abu Simbel leaves an impression that lasts a lifetime, a meeting place between past and present, where stone, sun, and story come together in perfect harmony. For more than 3,000 years, Abu Simbel has stood watch over Egypt's southern frontier, a silent sentinel guarding the border between Nubia and the heart of the Nile Valley. In the time of Ramses II, the temple was both a warning to potential invaders and a welcome to traders and allies. Its colossal statues, carved directly into the sandstone cliff, sent an unmistakable message of Egypt's strength and the pharaoh's divine authority. Even after the fall of the pharaohs, when the desert sands crept in and kingdoms rose and fell, the great faces of Ramses remained. Though half buried, they still looked out across the land, enduring through centuries of change. For the local Nubian people, the temple became part of the landscape, a constant presence linking past and present. The relocation in the Itzen-Jubite Lycusses ensured that Abu Simbel's role as guardian would continue. Now perched safely above the waters of Lake Nasser, it still greets all who approach from the south, though today they arrive as travelers, historians, and dreamers rather than armies or caravans. From sunrise, when the first golden light catches Ramses' serene smile, to sunset, when the statues glow deep amber against the desert sky, the temple seems alive, keeping silent watch over the shifting sands and the steady flow of the Nile's waters. In this timeless gaze, one feels the weight of history, the knowledge that this guardian has seen empires come and go, yet remains. To stand before Abu Simbel is to stand in the presence of endurance itself. It is a reminder that while human life is fleeting, the legacy we leave behind, in stone, in story, in spirit, can endure for ages. Abu Simbel is more than stone and artistry. It is a conversation across the ages. Standing before its colossal facade, one cannot help but feel the weight of centuries pressing gently, like the desert wind. This temple is not just a monument to Ramses II, but to the human desire to be remembered, to leave something behind that outlives our brief time on earth. Ramses carved his image into the cliff not only to honor the gods, but to etch his story into eternity. Every statue, every shaft of light on the Sun Festival speaks of a ruler who understood the power of legacy. The builders and laborers who shaped this place also left their mark, their skill and dedication immortalized alongside the pharaoh they served. Time has tested Abu Simbel. It has endured sandstorms, earthquakes, political upheavals, and even the threat of submersion beneath Lake Nasser. Each challenge could have erased it, yet it still stands, its gaze fixed on the horizon, unchanged in purpose. For modern visitors, the temple is a bridge. It connects the bustling world of today with an ancient civilization that saw beauty, power, and spirituality as inseparable. It reminds us that our actions, however small, ripple forward, shaping how we are remembered. As the sun sets behind the golden facade, casting long shadows across the desert, the temple seems to whisper, "We are all part of a story that continues beyond our lifetime." Abu Simbel's presence tells us that legacy is not merely what we build, but the meaning it carries. And that meaning can endure far longer than the hands that shaped it. Thank you, dear viewers, for joining me on this journey through the sands of time. To the majestic temple of Ramses II at Abu Simbel. Together we have walked beneath towering statues, stepped into sacred halls, and stood in the very chamber where sunlight meets the gods. We have uncovered stories carved in stone, from battles and diplomacy to devotion, artistry, and the dreams of a king who sought immortality. Abu Simbel is more than an ancient monument. It is a reminder of what human vision, faith, and determination can achieve. It has endured for over 3,000 years, surviving nature's forces, the rise and fall of empires, and even the challenge of being moved piece by piece to escape the rising waters of Lake Nasser. But, as we leave this story, I hope you carry with you not just the memory of its grandeur, but the lesson it teaches, that our actions, our creations, and our dreams can outlast us, shaping the world for generations to come. Thank you for watching, and may the spirit of Abu Simbel inspire you to build your own lasting legacy.